Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon and watched the stars that had been humanity's prison for 3,000 years. The view through the main screen showed the edge of the sanctuary worlds, the small cluster of star systems, where humans had lived since the Great Exile. Beyond that darkness lay the galaxy that had once been their home. Jake had heard the stories since he was a child. His great-great-grandmother had been among the last ships to flee when the Zephyrian Collective declared war on humanity. The aliens had said humans were too dangerous, too wild, too unpredictable to share the galaxy with other species. They had given humanity a choice: submit to alien rule or leave forever. Humanity had chosen exile. The communications officer turned toward Jake. "Captain, we're getting a signal from Admiral Kate Sullivan. She wants to speak with all ship commanders immediately." Jake nodded and activated the holographic display. Admiral Sullivan appeared, her gray hair tied back and her eyes sharp with determination. Behind her, Jake could see the massive bridge of the Starfire, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Sullivan had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. "Captains," Sullivan began, "today marks the end of our exile. Dr. Alex Chen has confirmed that our new faster-than-light drive can cross the galactic barrier. After 3 millennia, we're going home." Jake felt his heart race. Every human had dreamed of this day. The stories told of Earth, the beautiful blue world where humanity had first reached for the stars. They spoke of vast cities, green forests, and oceans that stretched beyond the horizon. But Earth was just one world among thousands that had once been human. "I know what you're thinking," Sullivan continued. "The galaxy we left is not the galaxy we'll find. Our intelligence suggests the Zephyrian Collective has fractured. The species that drove us out are no longer united. They've grown comfortable, lazy even. They believe we're extinct." The Admiral paused and looked directly into the camera. "They're wrong. We survived. We adapted. We grew stronger. The harsh conditions of the sanctuary worlds forced us to innovate in ways the galaxy has never seen. Our technology surpasses anything they have. Our ships are faster, our weapons more precise, our people more determined." Jake thought about the truth of those words. Life in the sanctuary worlds had never been easy. The stars were dim and distant. Resources were scarce. Every generation had to fight just to survive. But that struggle had made them tough. It had made them clever. It had made them human in ways their ancestors could never have imagined. Lieutenant Lisa Parker stepped up beside Jake. She was young, barely 25, but she had the fierce look of someone who had grown up hearing stories of the homeworld. "Captain, do you think they'll try to stop us again?" Jake looked at her thoughtful expression. Lisa represented the new generation of humans, those who had never known anything but exile yet still carried the dream of return in their hearts. "If they do, they'll find we're not the same species they drove out." Dr. Alex Chen appeared on by another part of the holographic display. The scientist looked tired but excited. His breakthrough in faster-than-light technology had made this moment possible. "The quantum field generators are ready across all ships. We can begin the journey whenever you give the order, Admiral." Sullivan nodded. "Dr. Chen, your work has given us more than just a way home. You've given us hope." She turned back to address all the captains. "I want to be clear about our mission. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about conquest. This is about reclamation. The galaxy belongs to all sentient species, but humanity has a right to be part of it." Jake understood the careful distinction. The humans returning weren't the same as those who had left. 3,000 years of hardship had taught them the value of cooperation, of working together against impossible odds. They had learned that strength came not from dominating others, but from lifting each other up. "Our scouts will go first," Sullivan explained. "Captain Danny Rodriguez will take the Phoenix's flame to gather intelligence. We need to know what we're facing before we commit our full forces." The Admiral's expression grew serious. "Remember, the species in the galaxy haven't seen humans for 3 millennia. To them, we're ghosts, legends, cautionary tales their parents told them. We have the advantage of surprise, but only once." Jake studied the star charts that appeared on his personal Display. The route back to the galaxy would take them through sectors controlled by a dozen different alien species. The Zephyrians were still there, though their empire had shrunk. The insectoid hive queen Zaxth still ruled from the galactic core, but her influence had weakened. New powers had risen, smaller kingdoms that squabbled over territory and resources. "What, about Earth?" asked Captain Elena Martinez from her ship. She commanded one of humanity's newest vessels, equipped with technology that would have seemed like magic to their ancestors. Sullivan's expression softened slightly. "Earth is our ultimate goal, but intelligence suggests it's been turned into some kind of monument. The aliens stripped it of all life after we left. They wanted to make sure no human could ever call it home again." Her voice hardened. "We're going to prove them wrong." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. Anger was useful, but only if controlled. The humans returning to the galaxy carried the hopes and dreams of every generation that had lived in exile. They couldn't afford to let emotion cloud their judgment. "When do we leave?" Jake asked. "Tomorrow," Sullivan replied. "The first wave departs at 800 hours. Captain Rodriguez and the scouts go first. The main battle groups will follow once we have intelligence on current galactic conditions." The Admiral looked at each captain in turn. "Get your crews ready. We're going to face things we can't imagine. But remember, we're not just returning to the galaxy. We're returning as something new, something the galaxy has never seen before." The holographic display faded, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts and the endless stars beyond the bridge windows. Tomorrow, humanity would take its first steps back into the galaxy that had rejected them. They were no longer refugees or exiles. They were explorers, warriors, and dreamers who had spent 3,000 years preparing for this moment. Jake activated the ship-wide communication system. "All crew, this is the captain. Tomorrow we begin our journey home. Get some rest. History starts in the morning." Captain Danny Rodriguez felt the familiar hum of the Phoenix's flame as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. After 6 weeks of journey through the void between galaxies, they had finally reached the outer rim of the Milky Way. The stars ahead looked different from those in the sanctuary worlds, brighter and more numerous. This was the galaxy humanity had once called home. "Sensors are picking up artificial structures," reported Lieutenant Mike Chen from the navigation station. "Looks like a patrol base about 2 light minutes ahead. Configuration matches old Zephyrian designs." Danny nodded and studied the tactical display. The alien base looked exactly like the ones described in humanity's historical records, down to the crystalline communication arrays and defensive platforms. After 3,000 years, the Zephyrians hadn't bothered to update their technology. "Set. Course for intercept, but keep our distance," Danny ordered. "I want to observe their patrol patterns before we make contact." The Phoenix's flame moved silently through space, its advanced stealth systems making it nearly invisible to the alien sensors. Danny watched as a Zephyrian patrol ship completed its routine circuit around the base. The vessel was sleek and elegant, built from the same biometallic compounds the species had used for millennia, but compared to human ships it looked primitive. Communications Officer Sarah Walsh turned from her station. "Captain, we're intercepting their transmissions. The Universal Translator is having no trouble with their language. They're using the same protocols as 3,000 years ago." Danny felt a mixture of amazement and disappointment. In the time humanity had spent fighting for survival in the harsh sanctuary worlds, developing new technologies and adapting to impossible conditions, the Zephyrians had remained exactly the same. They had grown comfortable in their victory, never pushing forward, never innovating. "Take us closer," Danny decided. "It's time to announce ourselves." The Phoenix's flame dropped its stealth systems and appeared on the Zephyrian sensors like a ghost materializing from nothing. Danny watched the alien base erupt into frantic activity. Ships scrambled to launch, weapon systems powered up, and communication arrays began broadcasting emergency signals in all directions. The main screen flickered as an incoming transmission arrived. A Zephyrian officer appeared, his blue-scaled face twisted with confusion and fear. The species was reptilian in appearance, with intelligent yellow eyes and ceremonial crests that indicated rank and clan status. This one wore the markings of a patrol commander. Unknown vessel, identify yourself immediately, the alien demanded in the formal language of galactic protocol. You are trespassing in Zephyrian space without authorization. Danny activated the visual transmission and saw the Zephyrian commander's eyes widen in shock. This is Captain Danny Rodriguez of the human vessel Phoenix's Flame. We request permission to pass through your territory. The alien stared at Danny for several long seconds, his yellow eyes blinking rapidly. Impossible, he whispered. Humans are extinct. The Great Exile was completed 3 millennia ago. You cannot exist. Yet here we are, Danny replied calmly. We're returning to the galaxy that was once our home. We come in peace, seeking only passage to our destination. The Zephyrian commander looked around his bridge as if seeking confirmation from his crew that he wasn't hallucinating. You must... Wait, he finally said. I must report this to the Hive Queen Zaxth. No human ship has been seen in the galaxy for 3,000 years. Danny nodded, understanding, while privately noting how the alien power structure hadn't changed. The insectoid Hive Queen still ruled the Zephyrian territories from the galactic core, just as she had when humanity was driven out. We'll wait, but not for long. We have places to go and people to see. Over the next several hours, Danny watched as the Zephyrian base descended into chaos. Ships arrived from across the sector, all carrying officials who needed to see the impossible human vessel with their own eyes. The Phoenix's Flame had become the center of a growing fleet of curious and frightened aliens. Lieutenant Chen looked up from his sensor readings. Captain, we're detecting at least 40 ships now, with more arriving every hour. Word is spreading fast through their communication networks. Danny smiled grimly. Good. Let them spread the word. Let every species in the galaxy know that humanity has returned. The communication system activated again, and this time a different Zephyrian appeared on screen. This one was older, with more elaborate ceremonial markings and the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. I am High Commander Zektal of the Zephyrian Deep Space Fleet. By what right do humans claim passage through our territory? By the same right we had 3,000 years ago, Danny answered. By the right of any sentient species to travel freely through the galaxy. The High Commander's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of agitation in his species. The humans were exiled for the safety of all galactic civilization. The collective voted unanimously to remove your kind from our space. Danny leaned forward, in his captain's chair. The collective that no longer exists. We've been monitoring galactic communications. The Great Alliance that drove us out fractured centuries ago. Now you have a dozen petty kingdoms squabbling over resources while civilization stagnates. The accusation hit home. Danny could see it in the alien commander's expression. The Zephyrians knew their civilization had declined since the exile of humanity. Without the challenge of human innovation and expansion, the galaxy had grown complacent. Our sensors indicate your technology has remained unchanged for over 1,000 years, Danny continued. While you celebrated your victory over humanity, we were fighting for survival in conditions you can't imagine. Every generation had to innovate or die. Can you say the same? High Commander Zektal was quiet for a moment, studying the human ship on his displays. Your vessel uses technologies we don't recognize. How is this possible? 3,000 years of necessity, Danny replied. When you have to make every resource count, when you can't waste anything, when survival depends on being smarter than your environment, you learn to build better tools. The alien commander looked troubled. What do you want? Why have you returned? Danny stood up and walked to the main view screen, looking directly at the Zephyrian officer. We want what we've always wanted, a place in the galaxy. We want to see the stars that were forbidden to us. We want to walk on worlds our ancestors described in stories. We want to come home. And if we refuse? Danny's expression grew serious. Then you'll discover that the humans returning are not the same ones. You drove out. We didn't survive 3 millennia in exile by being weak or giving up easily. The High Commander cut the transmission without another word. Danny watched as the alien fleet began to withdraw, except for a few ships that maintained their distance, while obviously tracking the Phoenix's Flame. Sarah Walsh looked up from her communication station. Captain, we're receiving coded transmissions from Admiral Sullivan. The main fleet is requesting a status report. Danny nodded. Tell the Admiral that the galaxy is exactly what we expected. Stagnant, divided, and completely unprepared for what's coming next. He looked at the retreating Zephyrian ships. Also tell her that our reception committee is already spreading the word. By tomorrow, every government in the galaxy will know that humanity has returned. Lieutenant Chen checked his navigation display. Orders for our next destination, sir. Danny smiled and settled back into his captain's chair. Set course for the Sol system. It's time to see what they did to Earth. Admiral Kate Sullivan watched from the bridge of the Starfire as 12 different star systems simultaneously lit up with human ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. The carefully coordinated emergence had been planned for maximum psychological impact. Every major alien power would receive the same message at the same moment. Humanity was back, and they were everywhere. All fleet commanders reporting successful arrival at their assigned positions, announced Commander Lisa Parker from the tactical station. She had been promoted after her exceptional performance during the reconnaissance missions. The aliens are responding exactly as predicted. Kate nodded with satisfaction. The coordinated appearance had sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. 12 different species had suddenly found human ships in their territory, all appearing at the same instant across thousands of light years. The message was clear. Humanity possessed technology and coordination capabilities that surpassed anything the galaxy had seen. Admiral, we're receiving priority transmissions from Captain Ryan Foster, reported the communications officer. The situation at Kepler Station is developing rapidly. Kate activated the holographic display and saw Captain Foster's face appear. Behind him she could see the bridge of his ship, the Thunderbolt, with crew members working frantically at their stations. Foster was one of humanity's younger commanders, but he had proven himself capable of thinking quickly under pressure. Admiral, the Zephyrians have assembled a battle fleet, Foster reported. 3 heavy cruisers, 6 destroyers, and at least 20 escort vessels. They're demanding we withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Kate studied the tactical information flowing across her display. The Zephyrian force was impressive by galactic standards, but it represented old thinking and older technology. Captain Foster, you have discretion to engage if they attack first. Show them what human innovation can accomplish. Foster nodded grimly. Understood, Admiral. Thunderbolt out. Kate switched her attention to other developing situations across the galaxy. At the same time, human ships were announcing their return. Other teams were making contact with species that had been oppressed by the former collective. The Valdarians in particular had sent desperate messages pleading for assistance. Dr. Amy Johnson appeared on another communication channel, her archaeological team having made a remarkable discovery on a dead world in the Outer Rim. Admiral, you need to see what we've found. The evidence is undeniable. Humans didn't just live in this galaxy originally, we seeded it with life. Kate felt her breath catch. Are you certain, Doctor? The genetic markers are unmistakable, Amy replied, excitement clear in her voice. Every major species in the galaxy shares base genetic sequences that originated from human experiments. We didn't just explore the galaxy 3,000 years ago. We created most of the life in it. The implications hit Kate like a physical blow. If humanity had originally populated the galaxy with life, then the exile hadn't just been a political decision. It had been a rejection of their own creators by the species they had brought into existence. The irony was staggering. Keep studying those findings, Kate ordered, and keep them classified for now. We'll release that information when the time is right. The tactical display suddenly flashed with urgent warnings. Captain Foster's situation at Kepler Station had escalated. Kate watched the sensor readings as the Zephyrian fleet moved to attack positions around the single human ship. The odds were overwhelming by any traditional calculation. All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan, Kate announced across the fleet communication network. You're about to witness what 3,000 years of human ingenuity can accomplish. Watch and learn. On the main display, Kate could see the Thunderbolt as it maneuvered between the massive Zephyrian vessels. Foster's ship was smaller than any of the alien cruisers, but it moved with precision and speed that made the enemy fleet look clumsy in comparison. The human vessel seemed to dance between the alien ships, avoiding their weapons while targeting their weak points with surgical strikes. The battle was over in less than 10 minutes. The Thunderbolt had disabled or destroyed every ship in the Zephyrian fleet without taking significant damage. The display of technological superiority was exactly what Kate had hoped to achieve. Word of the engagement would spread throughout the galaxy within hours. Captain Foster to Admiral Sullivan came the transmission from the battlefield. Zephyrian fleet neutralized. We're receiving surrender transmissions from the surviving vessels. They're asking how this was possible. Tell them it's what happens when you spend 3 millennia learning to survive against impossible odds. Kate replied. Take prisoners if they surrender, but be prepared for reinforcements. Kate switched her attention to another developing situation. General Ben Collins was reporting from his flagship about the liberation of Valdarian colonies. The peaceful species had been enslaved by their neighbors for over 2,000 years, forced to work in hazardous mining operations while their culture was systematically destroyed. The Valdarians are greeting us as liberators, Collins reported. They've maintained secret records of human contact from before the exile. They remember us as the species that helped them develop agriculture and medicine. Kate felt a surge of pride. This was why humanity deserved to return to the galaxy. Not for conquest or revenge, but to help species that had been ground down by millennia of oppression. The humans coming home weren't the same ones who had left, but they carried the same fundamental desire to explore, to help, and to build something better. Admiral, we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout the galaxy, reported Commander Parker. Every major power is mobilizing their forces. It looks like they're trying to form some kind of emergency alliance. Kate had expected this response. The sudden appearance of technologically superior human ships had terrified the alien governments. They would unite in fear, just as they had 3,000 years ago when they drove humanity into exile. Let them come, Kate said calmly. They're reacting out of fear, not strategy. They'll make mistakes. Captain Elena Martinez appeared on the communication display from her position near the galactic core. She commanded humanity's most advanced warship, equipped with experimental weapons and defense systems. Admiral, I'm detecting movement from the Hive Queen's personal fleet. She's mobilizing everything she has. Kate nodded. Hive Queen Zack had ruled the insectoid species for over 3 centuries. She had been a minor commander during the original exile, but she had risen to power by promising to keep humanity from ever returning. Now her worst fears were being realized. Captain Martinez, monitor their movements but don't engage unless attacked, Kate ordered. I want to see how they coordinate their response before we show them the full extent of our capabilities. Holographic display updated with new intelligence from scout ships throughout the galaxy. Human forces were encountering mixed reactions. Some species, particularly those that had been oppressed or marginalized, were welcoming the returning humans. Others, especially former members of the collective, were mobilizing for war. Dr. Alex Chen appeared on the communication channel from his research vessel. Admiral, the quantum field analysis is complete. We can maintain faster-than-light communication across the entire galaxy now. Real-time coordination is possible even at these distances. Kate smiled. The aliens still relied on communication systems that took days or weeks to transmit messages across galactic distances. Humanity could coordinate their entire fleet instantaneously, giving them a strategic advantage that their enemies couldn't comprehend. All commanders, this is Admiral Sullivan, Kate announced to the fleet. Phase 1 is complete. We've announced our return and demonstrated our capabilities. Phase 2 begins now. We're going to show the galaxy what human determination looks like when it's focused on a goal. Kate looked at the tactical display showing human ships spread across 12 star systems. Each ship represented thousands of people who had spent their entire lives dreaming of this moment. They were the descendants of exiles, the children of outcasts, the inheritors of a dream that had sustained humanity through 3 millennia of hardship. Prepare for full fleet operations, Kate commanded. It's time to come home. The Battle of Sigma Centauri began when 6 different alien species arrived simultaneously, their combined fleets creating the largest military force assembled in the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Admiral Kate Sullivan watched from the bridge of the Starfire as enemy ships continued to emerge from faster-than-light travel, filling the space around the strategic star system with vessels of every conceivable design. Final count shows over 800 alien ships, reported Commander Lisa Parker, her voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. Zephyrians, Krathari, Nexus Collective, Void Hunters, Crystal Singers, and Hive Queen Zakth's personal fleet. They're all here. Kate studied the tactical display with calm focus. The human fleet numbered only 60 ships, but each vessel represented the pinnacle of 3,000 years of desperate innovation. They've finally done what we hoped they would. They've united against us out of fear. Captain Jake Morrison appeared on the communication display from his position commanding the forward scout group. Admiral, they're broadcasting surrender, demands on all frequencies. They want us to submit to Galactic Authority and accept exile again. Tell them we tried exile once, Kate replied. It didn't take. Open a channel to all enemy commanders. The main screen filled with multiple alien faces as the communication system connected to every ship in the opposing fleet. Kate recognized several species from historical records, but they all shared the same expression of desperate determination. They knew this battle would determine the future of galactic civilization. Hive Queen Zakth dominated the center of the display, her insectoid features showing the strain of her 3 centuries of rule. Humans, you will withdraw from this system immediately and return to whatever dark corner of space spawned you. This is your final warning. Kate stood and looked directly at the assembled alien commanders. I am Admiral Kate Sullivan of the 4 Human Fleet. 3,000 years ago you drove us from our home because you feared what we might become. Today you're going to discover that your fears were justified. The Hive Queen's compound eyes glittered with rage. You are outnumbered, more than 10 to 1. Surrender now and we may allow your species to exist in the outer darkness where you belong. Numbers don't win battles, Kate replied calmly. Intelligence, innovation, and determination do. You're about to receive a practical demonstration. Kate cut the transmission and turned to her tactical officer. Commander Parker, signal all ships. Execute Pattern Omega. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions, each ship following precisely calculated vectors that had been programmed, months in advance. To the alien commanders it must have looked like a chaotic retreat, but Kate knew better. Every human ship was moving to a specific position that would maximize their technological advantages. Captain Danny Rodriguez appeared on the internal communication system from his ship at the edge of the formation. Admiral, the Phoenix's flame is in position. Quantum field generators are online. Similar reports came in from every human ship as they reached their assigned coordinates. The aliens were pursuing individual vessels, breaking up their formation in an attempt to run down the scattered human fleet. They were playing exactly into Kate's strategy. All ships activate quantum field synchronization, Kate ordered. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Every human ship suddenly became quantum entangled with every other human ship, allowing them to share targeting data, coordinate maneuvers, and distribute defensive capabilities across the entire fleet. The scattered human vessels began moving with perfect coordination, as if they were a single organism with 60 different bodies. The alien fleet found themselves facing an enemy that could predict their every move, coordinate responses instantly, across thousands of kilometers, and concentrate firepower with impossible precision. Human ships appeared to teleport around the battlefield, using quantum field manipulation to arrive exactly where needed at the perfect moment. Captain Elena Martinez demonstrated the new technology's potential by having her ship, the Starfire's sister vessel Nightfall, materialize directly behind a Zephyrian battlecruiser. The alien vessel's shields were configured to protect against frontal assault, leaving its rear sections vulnerable to precise strikes that disabled its engines and weapons simultaneously. Enemy formation is collapsing, reported Commander Parker. They can't coordinate responses fast enough to counter our maneuvers. Kate watched as the battle evolved exactly as her strategists had predicted. The alien commanders were competent, but they were fighting using 3,000-year-old tactics against technology they couldn't comprehend. Each human ship was effectively backed by the processing power and tactical analysis of every other human ship in the fleet. Captain Ryan Foster's voice came through the communication system as he disabled his fourth enemy vessel. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender transmissions from several Krathari ships. They're asking to withdraw from the battle. Grant them safe passage if they leave immediately," Kate replied. "But make sure they understand the terms. Any species that continues to oppose humanity's return will face the full consequences." The battle reached its turning point when General Ben Collins led a strike force directly against Hive Queen Zakth's flagship. The massive insectoid vessel was protected by layers of defensive screens and surrounded by escort ships, but the ideal human forces used quantum field manipulation to bypass the outer defenses entirely. Collins had spent months studying the internal structure of Hive Queen vessels from captured intelligence. His ships materialized inside the enemy formation and targeted specific systems with surgical precision. Within minutes, the flagship was drifting powerless while its escort ships surrendered rather than face destruction. "Hive Queen Zakth is requesting direct communication," announced the communications officer. Kate nodded and activated the main screen. The insectoid ruler looked older and more tired than she had at the beginning of the battle. Her compound eyes showed the defeated recognition of someone who had finally encountered something beyond her understanding. "How is this possible?" the Hive Queen asked quietly. "Our intelligence indicated human technology was primitive, barely capable of interstellar travel." "Your intelligence was 3,000 years out of date," Kate replied. "The humans you drove into exile were explorers and colonists. The humans returning home are survivors who spent every day of 3 millennia learning to overcome impossible challenges." The Hive Queen was silent for a long moment, studying Kate's face on her own displays. "What happens now? Do you destroy us as we attempted to destroy you?" Kate considered the question carefully. The alien fleets were defeated, their coordination shattered, their confidence broken. She could order the destruction of every enemy vessel and eliminate the leadership of 6 different species, but that wasn't why humanity had returned to the galaxy. "You have 2 choices," Kate said finally. "You can continue to oppose us and face the consequences of fighting a war you cannot win, or you can accept that the galaxy is large enough for all of us and work toward building something better than what came before." Captain Jake Morrison appeared on the tactical display, reporting from his position near Earth. "Admiral, our advance teams have reached Sol System. The planet is exactly as our intelligence suggested, completely lifeless, turned into some kind of monument to their victory over humanity." Kate felt anger rise in her chest but controlled it carefully. "Begin planetary restoration operations immediately. If they turned our world into a monument to exile, we'll turn it into a symbol of return." Dr. Amy Johnson's voice joined the conversation from her archaeological ship. "Admiral, we've found something incredible in the archives beneath Earth's surface. Hidden vaults containing the complete history of human galactic civilization. The records prove beyond doubt that humans originally seeded life throughout the galaxy." The revelation hit the alien commanders like a physical blow. Kate could see it in their expressions as the translation systems carried Dr. Johnson's words to every ship in the battle zone. The species that had driven humanity into exile were discovering they owed their very existence to human genetic engineering. Hive Queen Zakth's compound eyes reflected a complex mixture of shock, fear, and something that might have been shame. "You are saying we exiled our creators?" "We're saying the galaxy is more complicated than any of us realized," Kate replied. "But complexity doesn't have to mean conflict. We can build something better together than any of us could build alone." The battle was over, but Kate knew the real work was just beginning. The alien fleets were withdrawing, their commanders faced with the impossible task of explaining defeat to their home governments. Some species would accept the new reality and seek accommodation with returning humanity. Others would continue to resist until they were forced to acknowledge the changed balance of power. Kate looked at the tactical display showing human ships spread throughout the Sigma Centauri system. Each vessel carried the hopes and dreams of people who had spent their entire lives working toward this moment. They had returned home not as conquerors, but as the rightful inheritors of a galaxy their ancestors had helped create. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the New Geneva station, watching shuttles arrive from across the galaxy. Representatives from over 40 different species were coming to participate in the founding of the new Galactic Alliance. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Sigma Centauri, and the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. Below him, Earth turned slowly in its restored orbit, the blue and green world once again teeming with life. The planetary restoration project had taken 3 years to complete, but Dr. Alex Chen's terraforming technology had accomplished what many thought impossible. The dead monument to alien victory had become a living symbol of renewal and hope. "Jake, you need to see this," called Commander Lisa Parker from across the observation lounge. She had been promoted to diplomatic liaison, her talent for understanding different species making her invaluable in the complex negotiations that followed humanity's return. The Valdarian Cultural Exhibition just opened in the main gallery. "It's incredible." Jake followed Lisa through the corridors of the station, passing beings from dozens of different worlds. Human children played alongside young Zephyrians, their parents chatting in the universal trade language that had evolved from necessity. The sight still amazed Jake, remembering the fear and hostility that had greeted humanity's return. The cultural exhibition was everything Lisa had promised. The Valdarians had spent centuries preserving their artistic traditions, despite systematic oppression by their former rulers. Now freed from slavery, they were sharing their music, literature, and visual arts with the galaxy for the first time in millennia. "Their poetry is remarkable," Lisa explained, pointing to a display of luminescent text that shifted and changed as viewers approached. "They encode emotional resonances directly into their language. Reading their work is like feeling their thoughts." Jake nodded appreciatively, but his attention was drawn to a group of young beings from different species working together on some kind of technical project. A human teenager was explaining quantum field theory to a Krathari youth, while a young Nexus Collective member offered suggestions for improving the design. "That's what gives me hope," Jake said quietly. "The older generation remembers the conflicts, but these kids are growing up thinking cooperation is normal." Captain Elena Martinez approached them, her uniform now bearing the insignia of the new Galactic Alliance rather than the human fleet. She had volunteered to lead the joint exploration missions that were pushing beyond the galaxy's edge, continuing humanity's eternal quest for knowledge. "Jake, Admiral Sullivan wants to see you in the main conference chamber," Elena reported. "The final treaty negotiations are about to begin." Jake made his way through the station's central corridors, noting how the architecture blended human engineering with aesthetic elements from various alien cultures. The result was something entirely new, a visual representation of the cooperation that was slowly transforming galactic civilization. The main conference chamber was filled with representatives from species that had been enemies just 5 years earlier. Hive Queen Zakth sat beside former Krathari warlords, while Valdarian artists shared data tablets with Nexus Collective scientists. The gathering would have been impossible before humanity's return. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood at the center of the chamber, her hair now completely white but her eyes still sharp with determination. She had spent the past 5 years traveling throughout the galaxy, negotiating agreements and building the foundations of the new alliance. "The final provisions have been agreed upon," Sullivan announced to the assembled representatives. "The New Galactic Alliance will be founded on principles of mutual cooperation, technological sharing, and the protection of all sentient species." Jake took his seat among the human delegation and listened as the treaty was read aloud in dozens of different languages. The document represented more than just a political agreement. It was a commitment to building a galactic civilization based on the best aspects of every participating species. Dr. Amy Johnson appeared on the communication display from her research station in the galactic core. Her archaeological teams had spent years studying the ancient records found beneath Earth's surface, uncovering the true history of galactic civilization. The genetic analysis is complete, Amy reported. We can now prove conclusively that every major species in the galaxy shares common ancestry through human genetic experiments. We're all related, literally part of the same extended family. The revelation had profound implications that were still being explored. The species that had driven humanity into exile were discovering they owed their existence to human science. But rather than creating resentment, the knowledge was fostering a sense of shared heritage and common purpose. General Ben Collins joined the conference from his headquarters on the restored Earth. His military forces had been transformed into something unprecedented, a galactic peacekeeping organization staffed by volunteers from every member species. The integration protocols are working better than expected, Collins reported. Mixed species crews are serving together on ships throughout the Alliance. Former enemies are becoming trusted partners. Jake felt a sense of profound satisfaction as he listened to the reports. The humans who had returned from exile hadn't sought revenge or domination. Instead, they had used their advanced technology and hard-won wisdom to create something better than what had existed before. Captain Danny Rodriguez appeared on another communication channel from the frontier regions where exploration ships were discovering new worlds and new forms of life. We've made contact with 3 new species in the past month alone. All of them are requesting membership in the Alliance. The growth of the new Galactic Alliance was exceeding everyone's expectations. Species that had lived in isolation for millennia were emerging to join the cooperative civilization that humanity's return had made possible. The galaxy was becoming more connected and more diverse than ever before. Hive Queen Zakth stood slowly, her ancient form showing the weight of her centuries but her compound eyes bright with something Jake had never seen before. Hope. I was wrong to oppose humanity's return, she said in the ceremonial language of treaty-making. I spent 3 centuries believing that strength came from controlling others. The humans have shown us that true strength comes from helping others become stronger. The admission sent ripples of emotion through the chamber. The insectoid ruler who had led the original exile was publicly acknowledging that humanity's return had benefited the entire galaxy. Dr. Alex Chen appeared on the display from his research facility, where teams from dozens of species were working together to push the boundaries of science and technology. The collaborative research programs are producing results beyond our most optimistic projections. When different species combine their unique perspectives, we achieve breakthroughs that none of us could accomplish alone. Jake looked around the chamber at the faces of beings from worlds scattered across the galaxy. Each species brought its own strengths, its own insights, its own dreams for the future. Humanity's contribution wasn't just advanced technology or military prowess, but the vision of cooperation that had sustained them through 3 millennia of exile. Captain Ryan Foster joined the conference from his position commanding one of the new exploration vessels. His ship carried a mixed crew representing 8 different species, all working together to map previously unknown regions of space. We've identified over 100 potentially habitable worlds in the past year, Foster reported. With Alliance terraforming technology, we can support colonies for any species that wants to expand beyond their home systems. The promise of unlimited expansion was transforming galactic politics. Instead of competing for scarce resources, the Alliance species were working together to develop new worlds and share the benefits of exploration. Admiral Sullivan looked at Jake and nodded toward the podium. It was time for him to address the assembly as humanity's representative in the formal treaty ceremony. Jake stood and walked to the center of the chamber, looking at the faces of beings whose ancestors had driven his people into exile. But he felt no anger, only hope for what they could build together. 3,000 years ago, humanity was forced to leave this galaxy, Jake began. We were told we were too dangerous, too unpredictable to coexist with other species. In some ways, those fears were justified. Humans are dangerous and unpredictable. We refuse to accept limitations. We push boundaries. We ask uncomfortable questions. We insist that things can always be better. Jake paused and looked directly at the representatives of each species. But that's exactly what the galaxy needed. Stagnation isn't safety. Comfort isn't security. Progress requires risk. Innovation demands courage, and cooperation needs the willingness to trust former enemies. The chamber was completely silent as Jake's words were translated into dozens of languages. Humanity has returned home, but we didn't come back to reclaim what was taken from us. We came back to help build something that never existed before. A galactic civilization based on the principle that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. Jake stepped back as Admiral Sullivan joined him at the podium.